Welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today I have Mark Lancaster of SDL. Hello.
Hello.
Can you tell us a bit about you and about SDL and the work that you do?
So, let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Probably the best place. So, I started off life as an engineer, design engineer. So I was in computer programming, so software design, architectures, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That was all kind of quite tricky. And so I thought, well, let's move into management, which was much more relaxing. So moved into management, giving people instructions is far easier than actually doing the work yourself. And so far it's worked quite well. And I work for American software companies primarily at the beginning. So Lotus Development Corporation, they're part of IBM. And
Is Note still around?
Notes is still around, I think, but probably only just.
I remember using that back in the day. Horrible.
And Ashton Tate, which is a big D-based company. So I spent quite a lot of my time in the States. Ashton Tate, was then acquired by Borland, which is another big database company at that time. And so I thought, well, in Ashton Tate, I was doing a lot of international development, ensuring everything was developed for an international market, all language enabled, right currencies, all this kind of stuff, able to support all different character sets, sorting and so on. There's quite a lot to it. And so I thought, well, there's got to be, the smaller businesses are not going to have these sort of resources, so they're going to need some sort of consultancy. US companies, small, medium, going into the European businesses.
Yeah.
So I set up that's when SDL was born, as it were, and it was really consultancy to help businesses go global, and with the view of...
What does SDL stand for?
Well, it actually stands for, I think, Software and Document Localization. Okay. We never ever use that because
you heard it here first.
It's so striking. There was actually a little test done in the company as to who knows what it stands for, and I don't think anybody did. So anyway, so we started off, and it was basically all about language being the prime driver. This is before the internet, remember?
Yeah.
And I sort of had fairly sort of small ambitions. I figured that if I got a nice teak table and some leather chairs, I'd kind of made it, and that was kind of it. So then, because of my contacts, they were with big companies. We actually tended to partner with or sell, if you like, to the bigger companies to start off with. So we started getting deals with people like Computer Associates, Microsoft, because those were the people that I knew, and I got contracts with them.
Yeah.
Then, probably 6 years in, I decided that the opportunity was actually to automate as much of the, if you like, the language processing. So not just automated translation, but all the workflows and the complexity from getting, if you like, software products and documentation and content from one language to another. It's all about managing the process as well as translating the words.
Yeah.
So what we did is we built up pretty much all the technology, all the leading technology in the world. I mean, literally all of it. So all the workflow packages, all the it's called translation memory, where translators they use a little package and everything they translate keeps in a little memory, and when they translate something next time they can reuse everything they've translated previously. And so there was quite a lot of technology involved in that. And then I thought, well, hold on a second. And then the internet sort of came along, and so I decided it was a good idea to float the business. And I remember going to the City First of all saying, we've got this great business, we've got this technology, it's going to be really important for companies. And I think the first time we went in, they kind of said, "Go away, Sonny. This is big money here."
Was this AIM or the main market?
This was the main market. And then I think literally a month later, the .com came along, and so we changed it to SDL.com. And I think we were pretty much
like CRM and customer experience management.
And there was massive amounts of excitement, and we floated the business. I think it was turning over about 12 million. I think the share price went up to some insane number, like £8 or something.
$1 billion business at one point.
It was literally, I think it was £500 million valuation on no profits and 12 million of turnover. And so I thought I was dreadfully important in those days and couldn't possibly be queuing or doing anything. Then the share price dropped down to about 26p. So literally pretty much the next week it was like, well, no, the internet's not going to change everything, and the shareholders wanted to change our strategy, which we didn't. We kept on with our strategy of investing in technology to help businesses, and so we then decided. So we're on the main market, went through a pretty roller coaster ride then, stuck to our guns, kept on investing in the technology, and then we decided that actually content management technology, so managing websites, managing documentation, all that
logical kind of flow on.
And so it was all about managing content. And then fast forwarding, we then started looking at, well, okay, how's the internet going to change people's lives? And so we started looking at, well, most websites to this day, in fact, are pretty appalling in terms of their actual customer journey, user experience to do anything with. So
I was going to say, you must. This is kind of to butt in. You must have been. If you've seen it, Marissa Mayer's keynote at the CEX in Las Vegas. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
About them being a content provider rather than just a search engine and stuff. And I thought that's probably right up your street.
Yeah, indeed. And so you see, if you take that as an example, so in order for companies to manage customer experience now, first thing they do is to need to gain insights on their customers. So that's all about listening, and we call it social listening now. But the reality of it is a social listening package listens to everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you take your blog as an example, that's on the net. It's available, and so if you're crawling, you'll find it, and that will go in the sentiment, the things you're saying in there will go in and influence sentiment of what's happening in the world.
Sure.
And so we made an acquisition into social listening and customer analytics.
Okay.
And that's the kind of the first sort of prong that customers need to be able to manage customer experience. They need to have insights of what their customers are doing. The second prong is once they've got those insights, they then need to orchestrate all the complexity of their organisation so that they've got consistent messaging.
Yeah.
And so what they're saying in their
across languages and geographies.
Across languages, geographies, channels.
Yeah.
And so they need to make sure that what they're saying in their documentation is a similar, same brand, same message,
same look and feel,
exactly,
all of that sort of stuff.
In their docs, in their web page, in their FAQs, everything. And what's more is all document. I mean, manuals are a thing of the past. Everything is, it's on a device, it's on a screen, it's online. You don't want to be reading words, really. Obviously words will always be there, but it's basically words integrated with videos. So we invested quite a lot in media management, and we've invested quite a lot in targeting. And so the last piece is actually, when you've got all this content you want to deliver to the customer, I mean, is there one customer experience? Well, the answer is probably not. So, if you go to our SDL website, or let's take it away from SDL, if you go to Debenhams, and they've got their online, this is what they're selling, what you want will be different to what I want.
Sure.
And you don't want to have to go through 10 clicks to find it. Ideally, you want to go there, you want to basically, you want the system to be aware of...
Yeah, I'm a bit of an outlier when it comes to that, because I'm a bit like, don't try and outguess me. So I will turn off. I am a bit of an outlier. I'm a bit of a technological freak. So I'll find out about things and I will flush cookies and cache and history browser and all that sort of thing. I was like, I don't want you to tell me what you think I want to find. I want to find it.
Well, that's I believe.
But that's just me.
Yeah, I believe that's because maybe you're a technophobe.
No, it's not. I understand the technology so much that I actually, and also I'm a researcher.
Right.
I do research and analysis that I have done throughout my career, and so I also believe in the power of serendipity.
Okay. So I'd love you. And this is not this interview.
You said it.
But I would love you to have a look at our customer commitment dashboard, because the algorithms in that are based upon exactly the complexity that you're talking about. So very often what a lot of software does is it takes you to where it thinks you want to go, but that's not really where you want to go. And that's quite a complicated.
Yes.
That's quite complicated. It's not just down to sort of flat, simple algorithms. It's quite complicated to actually pick that right journey. So there's no point, for example, in you bought a car last week and then getting an email saying you want to buy a car, which is the typical thing you get. Yeah?
Yes, indeed.
But I'll take you to one which I think is quite good. So if you take Amazon, which have invested quite a lot of time and money in this.
I think they're really generally quite good at it, unless you buy gifts for people and don't tell them it's a gift.
Exactly, because then they're giving stuff that they think is for your profile.
Because then you buy like a soft cuddly toy for like for my niece or my nephew sort of thing, but you don't tell them that you want it gift wrapped, and therefore amongst all the music and the business books and all the other things I buy off Amazon, now they're going like, he's steam coming out of their ears, like, oh, this does not compute.
Well, exactly.
And then they start trying to flog you other sort of like cuddly toys along with, I don't know.
Do we really want to go there? That's the question.
Well, let's not even go there.
Because that's it, you see. And so, but if you, that's an unusual thing. But generally speaking, if you take Amazon as being, they do it particularly well. And what our software does is it logs everything about you. The software we sell to our customers allows our customers to log everything we sell. So, there's somebody from House of Fraser, they bought a load of stuff. We'll know who they are when they come and revisit the site, and we'll know what their buying behaviours are. Now, when it starts getting really clever is actually you can then compare the buying behaviours of yourself with the profiles and buying behaviours of similar people. So we know, for example, if somebody's gone to a site and they bought, one person's bought, I'll make it simple, but cheese and then a packet of biscuits. Another person's gone and has bought cheese and a bottle of wine. Another person's gone and has bought cheese and biscuits. And so we pretty much know that,
fair bet that
the next person that comes, if they buy cheese, they'll either want wine or biscuits. And so, well, so would you like something like that? And it doesn't work all the time, but if it's quite sophisticated and it's not in your face,
and it's absolutely, I think it's absolutely clear that there is value and a demand for businesses to be more proactive. As long as you're not being pushy.
That's right. As long as it's not in your face.
Yeah.
And it's not suppressing what else you might want to do.
Yeah.
So you're not. Then it's very, very powerful. So, for example, the last thing. For example, computers. Well, I'm a computer guy, but I'm not really interested in computers. I'm too old for all that kind of crap now.
Yeah.
I don't want to know that Dell've got 2,000 different types of flavour of laptops. I just want one that does the job. And so being presented with a catalogue of complexity, particularly for someone like me who thinks he's important and busy, okay, I don't want to have all that. I want to have the one that's, and I want to, I like the insights. And so I think that every single business needs to be able to target the customer with the right content at the right time in the right format. So whether they're on their phone or whether they're on a tablet or whatever they're doing, is that all that stuff is linked together and they're getting a consistent message. And so that's kind of, if you look at our customer experience platform, which is, so what we've done is we've made all these acquisitions of all the different pieces and said,
and then you put them all
and
together.
then we put them all together and we're saying, okay, if you're a company and you want to manage these customer experiences, you don't want to be involved in all the complexities of gluing your outbound email to all your customers with your listening as to what they're doing and what they've done on your website. You want it all put together. Yeah. So that's what we've tried to do.
So, I read that you've, well, let's go step back a little bit. So, what would you say, now that, given the journey that SDL's kind of made, what is SDL now after 20 years? What's, if you describe it in what's the headline?
Very simple. We help customers engage with their customers, and that drives revenue to them. And so, to my mind, if you take you and I, people can't see us, of course, but we're old people, and so we've converted.
I'm not that old. Not in my mind.
We've converted to the web, so we think we know what we're doing and stuff. But if you look at the younger generation, which are now becoming decision makers, they've been brought up on the web. Yeah. The way that they will behave, and we did a survey on this, in fact, where people actually, as long as they don't feel their data is being misused, so data on them is being misused, they're very happy to give it. They're very happy to have cookies on their site if it's going to help them. And so for us, it's all about providing customers our customers with the capabilities to provide their customers with a really good experience. And that doesn't, by the way, and one of the most critical things here is, in the old days, if you're Coca-Cola, you can say, my Coke's great. You run big adverts, big PR campaigns, stick whoever, Michael Jackson, whoever the person is, on the front, and everybody thinks it's cool. Well, nowadays, there's all this blogging and chatting and things going on, and you combine all that, and the sentiment of a brand, whether it's iPhone, Facebook, whether it's a particular product, whether it's Nike, that's very fickle. And it can change very quickly. And so customers, companies, those big, they need to be listening and finding out and basically knowing what people are thinking before that becomes too much of a wave of. So that's really what we do. We provide the technology to help.
But actually, right now you're according to the literature, you're working with about 42 of the top 50 global brands. And what I would find really interesting is, and it's also just the subject of this kind of blog, is to get a better understanding of what are some of the big challenges that some of these big global brands kind of going through, and sort of what are the lessons we can possibly learn from them, because not everybody's a big global brand, and I guess there's sort of there's lessons that can be learnt, or challenges that people will go through, similar challenges that we'll go through, and what lessons can we learn from that? So is there some themes?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think the first thing is so if we go through each particular step. So if you take social listening, everybody knows or thinks that's quite important. Okay, and so typically very fragmented markets, what companies do is we need to listen to what our customers are saying. And so they go.
What does that mean, though?
Yeah, they go and buy a product. It's not an expensive one. It might be 10 grand. It might be 100 grand. But they buy a product, and they start listening to their customers, and then they get a lot of data on what their customers are saying. And the question is what do they do with that data? How can they actually apply what's being said to actual making and changing decisions within an actual business?
Sure.
And so what our software does, and actually this is nothing to do with the interview, but I just very you'd be interested in this, is what we've done is we've created what we call a customer commitment dashboard. And what it does is, and the people that created this software, the concept of it, were actually market researchers.
Okay.
And so the concept of the software came from market research folk. And you probably be much more engaging with them than you probably are with me. Not that you're not engaged, but there would be a lot of resonance. And what we did is we kind of said, okay, if people are using these particular words in these patterns at this particular point in the buying cycle, then they're doing this. If they're actually using these words, then it's a support issue. If they're doing these words, it's a lack of commitment to brand. And so what we
so that's the predictive analytics sort of side of things.
Exactly. So we can then say, well, and what we're actually doing. So this is a funny bit here. So what I did is we bought, I think it was Synopsis, or it was a listening platform we bought. And our IT guy, and it ended up coming to my desk, and he said, we need to buy this because then we can find out what our customers are saying and it'll all be great. And it was like 40 grand. And so I said, okay. And so that was 2 or 3 years ago. We bought it. I don't think we've done anything with it. Nothing to do necessarily with the product, by the way. We bought this product and nobody did anything with it. With our product, the customer commitment, I did the same thing. So we bought the company, and I said, look guys, we've got products. And so we used one of our products. And I said, right, I want the marketing VP of that particular product line, I want you to use our stuff. Okay? He started to use it. I didn't get anything from it. Nothing. Okay? And bearing in mind, this is in theory, I've paid for a company, so we have incentive to use it ourselves, and I'm telling the individual to use it. And it took me a year and a half to actually, with me keeping on saying, do you want to get your bonus or not? That's what it came down to. And so the learning there is we used our own software to try and solve our own business problem and to find out where we could improve the buying side. And we found it really hard.
Otherwise known as eating your own dog food.
Yeah. And I can tell you, it had I not been there, we'd have given up. And so what we then did
You know what it really points out there, I think, is that companies talk a lot about listening, and but actually listening's really hard, and we know it as human beings that it's easier to talk than it is to listen.
Yeah.
And I think if you like, illustrates that kind of point. It's like we're listening, when actually we need to do and talk and things. And it's like actually listening is a thing. We talk about it and talk about how it's important, but actually to listen and to really not just to kind of almost like listen in a way that you hear the words, but actually you have my focus.
I have a theory as to why that is.
Okay.
Because I think I'm pretty crap at this as well, actually. I always thought I was quite good. But the reason for that is because it's really hard to actually, if you're listening and you're understanding, you've got to really use your brain.
Yes.
So I can listen to what you're saying, but I'm not actually listening. There's just words coming out, and I'm not processing those words.
I'll tell you why that is if you want.
Please.
A piece of research, neuroscience research that's been done, which shows that the brain, as a muscle, uses 40% more energy than any other muscle in the body. And therefore, in our sort of back in here, the hippocampus part of the brain, that's almost the primal instincts. Our first priority is survival.
So we don't want to use it because we don't want to use the energy. Then we need more food. And of course we didn't have that. And so, well, there you go. But you're obviously way ahead of me. Maybe you should come work for us. but and so I think, as you say, I think what we do is, even if we want to listen and we want it to work, we don't actually get the buy-in.
No.
There's a guy who used to work for me years ago, not lovely bloke. He always used to talk about psychological buy-in. and anyway, the thing is if you take that particular learning, is you can buy a piece of software, and the worst thing you can do is buy a piece of software with the IT department. Because then you've got complexity in there and it takes a lot longer. So I think there's two things that are going. The first thing is what we're moving all our software to is a software as a service. Now, if you say to people, what does that mean? And we spent quite a lot of time educating our own company. Talk to a finance person, they'll say, that equals recurring revenue. Okay? If you speak to a developer, they'll say, that's all about scale and multi-tenancy, so that you don't have lots and lots of products, and you can basically make it efficient in terms of the back end. The reality of it is what to me what it is creating a piece of software so that somebody like you or I can pick it up and get working with it without having to do lots and lots of if you like, understanding, preparation, support, professional services.
I mean, effectively, we are getting to the point where we want things to be plug and play in every sort of aspect of our life. Hence
the iPhone.
Yeah,
the
ultimate test is you pick something up and you can't use it straight away, then it's rubbish.
And of course, the more complex the problem is the more difficult it is to make it plug and play. And if you've got plug and play, typically that doesn't equal something that will scale. Because as you get asked more things of it, that creates complexity. So anyway, the first learning of, I guess, that social piece is we're now on V2 of the sort of software, and what we've done is we've changed it so that it's much easier for people to actually pick it up, learn it, and basically get going. And I'd say that for anybody, forgetting our software, but for anybody doing social, what they've got to realise is that in order to really use social, you've either got to hire someone that's got a research mentality so that they can basically apply the data to something that's meaningful. Or if you don't want to do that, you need to look and think about, well, what's the software actually going to deliver to you so you can change your business decisions.
Well, you're also going to have to ask yourself the fundamental questions, like why are we listening?
Yeah.
And to what end?
Yeah.
And do we really care? Or is this just wallpaper?
Well, I think you definitely do. I think that...
No, I wouldn't disagree with that. But I think there's a fundamental question that you need to ask in many kind of companies, because a lot of companies do it. But I'm like going, I don't really think that you care that much about it. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Well, no disrespect. let's add an example to that. So, really and truly, for every single company that's a successful company, all they really care about is making money. Okay, I mean that's survival. It's like it's like us eating. It's survival. And so the only reason that we want to listen to our customers is because if we don't listen, we think it'll make us less money because they won't be our friends and influence other people. Sure. And if we do listen, now here's another one which you might, hopefully you'll agree with. And this came straight from our researchers. So they, as I said, they developed this customer commitment dashboard. And what we do is we think that if we go to our customers and we ask them what are their problems and what they want, and then we do what they tell us to, that will equal business success. Wrong. That very, very rarely actually does that. What you do is you go and say, what's your business problem? What do you want to achieve? And then we solve the business problem, not what they think they want. And so they've got a preconceived idea as to how to solve things. And so as you say, it comes back again. I mean, the actual...
It's all about inference from intelligence.
Yeah, and it's quite complicated.
Yeah, so it's about joining the dots. So I've got these disparate pieces of information that you got to put it and then tell the story that those kind of dots describe, but the story's not obvious.
Yeah, no, indeed. And so I guess that's the listening piece. And then if you're moving on from the managing all the content piece, well, the big thing with websites is what typically companies tend to do with websites is they tend to create a website and then every sort of year or 2 years if you like, design the website. Yeah. Okay, and why is that?
Generally because this is my cynical hat on, is generally because chief marketing officer or chief brand officer or something changes their job, and you get a new person in and it becomes a completely ego-driven sort of like thing. Oh, it's not mine, I can't use that, I have to change it. Sorry for all you people out there they're in that sort of space, but having worked in Big Corp, that's my experience.
Yeah, I mean certainly I think that happens.
There's also design trends and things that tend to sort of drive a lot of that.
So. Yeah, and I think the way folks should look at their website is they should be continually evolving versus making step changes, because step changes you tend to lose lots of maybe traditional traffic, SEO, whatever it might be. So you lose a lot of things and you gain some other things. And
the shock changes. The big change shocks people, and people don't like getting shocked.
Yeah.
And then they go and they'll bounce. I'd imagine that there's one thing that you probably know for certain is when you change your website wholesale overnight, then your bounce rate goes up.
Yeah, because people aren't getting expected. Any return customer, they're not getting what they expect. And so, that's what I'd say on that. To me, it's all about, if you look at learnings, it's all about continually evolving and putting in adequate resources. I mean, a website, it's not a marketing tool. It is a central hub and communications channel for the business. And if I was a company, my urge would be to anybody out there with a website and say, what is it getting for you at the moment? What's it doing for you? And what could it do for you? Yeah. And that doesn't just mean a website you're looking at on a PC. That could be accessing through your iPhone. It could be accessing through, better be politically correct, your Samsung or whatever, your tablet. And if you look at the website in what can it do for you, what's the value that it can do, and you design your whole investment and infrastructure around that, and you'll be a hell of a lot more successful. So you make the investments. Yeah. Because if you look at how we lead our lives and how what's important, people buying things and being influenced by things, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it was through press, media, conversations, etc. And press had a pretty big reach, and so pretty influential. TV, pretty big reach, pretty influential. Conversations, influential, but very limited to who's around you. Yeah. Okay. Now, all the influencing, or 80% of the influencing, is done through iPhones, which is basically your website. That's what. And so the channel and the importance of that
Yeah.
as an integral part of your company policy is massive.
Well, I think that's true, and I think that's where many companies are trying to figure out this whole idea of how do you influence the influencers if you're not the influencer anymore, because I think that's also been a mindset shift, as it were, is
Exactly.
that companies have gone, well, we're not in charge anymore.
You are not. That's exactly right. You're not in charge. And so in the old days, you had a company selling tractors. Okay, so you'd have your tractor, a nice shiny tractor, and you'd basically maybe have Farmers World every year in, say, Italy. So you'd have your tractor that you built in the UK. Let's just say it's an Agco tractor or something. You'd find a distributor, your best friend in Italy. You give him your tractor. You translate the manual. You go to Farmers World. Maybe run a couple of ads in the Agricultural Weekly or something. Tell everybody it's a great bloody tractor and you really need one of those. A few sheepdogs around it, make it look really great, and you tell it to a few farmers. And farmers that bought it, they're unlikely to speak to other farmers and tell them it's rubbish because they live, the local 3 or 4 maybe.
Yeah.
So you'd have maybe a positive influence or a negative influence to a very small community.
Yeah.
But people who lived on the other side of Italy to continue, they wouldn't even know. Now. Anybody can comment on anything, and so the control and power is actually with the users.
And then, but I think it was also emerging is that the control and there's also been an exponential increase in noise, which is where the kind of listening kind of comes in and trying to filter through all that sort of stuff. But then there's also points of influence that people will go to that are trusted sort of sources in particular kind of areas, and that's where this idea around influence kind of marketing and how do you influence the influencers and all that sort of stuff is another area that businesses are starting to get their head around. So what do you mean I have to make friends with somebody to kind of like to promote my message or to ingratiate myself with this community of kind of people? And it is whilst a lot of people say you can be familiar with something, but you necessarily get it. Yeah. If you understand what I mean. I
do understand, and I mean an example is.
So I think there's still a lot of change happening, and still a lot of change to come, and particularly as I think we've only just touched the sides with all this, this sort of stuff.
And your blog is a pretty good example of that. So if you look at the growth in that, that is an influencer. And the more people that look at it, the more it'll influence. And then
it's me in my shed, really.
well, indeed. But then you get people that listen to and people that not. But the fact of the matter is that somebody as insignificant as you can become very significant, and then other people can become very significant. And so it's not just like keeping in with the press or keeping in with the researchers. They're just a piece of it, an influential piece still. But there's so many other people, and the important thing that I think is everybody can influence.
Yes.
And you've got to be able to work with all these sources, and it comes back to this listening piece. And so when Apple they launched one of their iPhones, had a problem with the battery, shitloads of complaints, everybody's saying this doesn't work. And so the way they dealt with it was rather than running a press release, basically saying we're great, it's not our problem. What they did was they basically just manage the user groups by saying, okay, we understand the problem, we're going to do a bug fix, and that was a fantastic way of them integrating with their user community. And so it's not just about sticking a web page up and saying you're great. It's about managing the whole community right the way through.
Yeah, I think if you tell people that you think that you yourselves are great, then nobody believes you anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just it's like I think there is a you can't buy it. People don't believe it if you say it yourselves, and therefore you've got to earn it. You've got to earn the right. Apple is an interesting example because they never say that they're great. They aspire to to deliver great kind of products and experiences, but they never say that we're great. They never say that they're the number one in something.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they have never said they're number one in something. They just are Apple.
Yeah. I think and they're an interesting company because they've always been a very cult sort of, that Apple has always been sort of, and I'd like to think of ourselves like this, is they're creating a great product and I mean, Steve Jobs did what Steve Jobs thought was right for, in effect, his customers and his community.
Yes.
And I think that's a very, very good way to actually approach a business.
Well, absolutely.
Worry about your customers and what you're at. So, for me, people say, well, I mean, number one, I founded the company, then I left the company and I'll come back to the company. And they kind of said, well, why did you come back? And I kind of said, well, I'm pretty puzzled on that myself, actually. But, really, it's because you have a hell of a loyalty to the staff, a hell of a loyalty to the customers, and you have a loyalty to the shareholders as well, to a degree.
Yeah.
And if you do...
What did you do in between?
I tried to sit on the beach.
Right.
That was my goal. I had my bucket and spade, and everything was.
Beach wasn't that attractive.
Well, yeah. It was. I mean, it was good, but I think, this year for SDL, and actually the stuff we've done in trying to take all the technology we've invested in and bought and bring it into one, if you like, customer experience platform.
Yeah.
I reckon this has probably been our most successful year. It's been the hardest year that I've ever had in my career. It's much harder than when I started up the company because I've had to completely change all my exec team to a different team that's going to basically go forward as one. We had lots of different businesses, if you like. We had a web business and a social business and an analytics business.
It's very siloed, but now you've had to kind of unify.
And now we've come on a second. And our customers really said this to us. They said, well, we don't really want to have 10 people we're talking to. We want to have one.
I want to talk to one person.
And so that's what we've aspired to do anyway, to just basically have one platform. And I think the 2014 year, which we're now in, we've now got the structure in place, we've got our products in place, and this is going to be a year of building. But I'm pretty excited, actually.
So what do you think problem yourself? I mean, the thing about your customers, what are the big challenges coming up for some of the, sort of big firms, particularly ones that are trying to get customer experience sort of right and or better? What do you think are the big challenges that most of them possibly have thought about, or around the corner, or just over the horizon?
Well, I think first of all, they've got to have their whole exec team aligned and agreed on what the problem or the opportunity is.
Yeah.
And they're all aligned on what components they need to achieve it. So it's not a question of just marketing changing or support changing or development changing. So what they need to do is they all need to say, okay, so what's the big picture here? What do our customers want?
So it's alignment to brand and customers rather than to function.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's what we tried to do.
Okay.
And I think the crap that we've gone through, which has been horrendous, I think a lot of companies are going to have to go through that. Yeah. Because we're humans, so a human can probably manage directly 6 to 12 other humans, managing them properly. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if it's more simplistic and you're just sort of punching on a production line, you can manage probably 20. But, in terms of managing and directing probably 6 to 12 people, and then they have 6 to 12 people. And so you're always going to be trapped in silos. A business has to be trapped in silos because of our limitations as people. And we are driven, and the way we work is very emotional.
Well, it's true. I mean, I'm not so sure I'd agree with that. That we have to always adopt such a hierarchical structure, but that's fine. That's the hippie in me, I guess. Because I think there is an opportunity to explore things like self-organising teams and all that sort of stuff. And there's firms that are doing some really fascinating kind of things around that. But again, even if you do move your organisation to more alignment with what the mission and the purpose of the business is, rather than actually having an alignment to your function, as it were, in the first instance, to then go to throw the organisational sort of model kind of out and go, we're going to go into self-organising teams. It's
tricky.
It's two huge leaps.
Huge, and you probably will need significant management change to actually achieve that. And so you're going to have knowledge walking out the door. So first of all, you've got to align your team.
Yes.
And all our software tries to do is basically say, look, this piece of software is used by the marketing people. This piece of software here will be used by the support people. This piece is used by the R&D people, and basically it all talks to each other. So you guys don't have, it's just facilitating what they need to do. So it's helping them solve the business problem. So that's the kind of our concept.
So that one view of the customer, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. And so on a customer journey, we talked a lot about customers sort of saying things positive and negative. So that's all in the support side of the organisation.
Yeah.
Whereas the marketing people, there's no point in the marketing people sort of having various campaigns saying we're great and we're this and we're that if it's not aligned with what your customers are thinking. Yeah. Because and so those all need to be joined up so that you've got a coherent message across the whole piece.
Does it go from the front end all the way through to the back end as well?
Yeah, but what we don't get involved in, so just to be clear, so we're not involved in support ticketing,
right,
or customer relationship databases. So right. that I consider that
so
Oracle.
It's more experience and content
exactly.
and that sort of the external sort of like experience that can come to. It doesn't link through to relationship management and also then invoicing and ticketing and support
exactly.
and all that sort of stuff.
All those big back-end systems are covered by your Oracles, your IBMs.
Yeah.
But what I think Oracle and IBM and co are trying to do in Salesforce is they're saying we need to be doing this experience stuff, but that's going to be difficult for them.
Well, exactly.
And so what we do is we say, well, look, we understand you've got a Salesforce, or you've got an accounting system, or you've got a customer relationship system. That's fine.
Yeah.
But what you're actually talking to your customer about, so the stuff you're pushing out to your customer, that's us.
Yeah.
So content on your website, your manuals, your listening. So all those the pieces around the experience, that's us.
Okay. So what are the big plans for SDL 2014 and beyond, apart from world domination, obviously?
I was going to say, I thought I told you those. So,
but I mean, you've told me that it's an exciting time. You've done some realignment, reorganisation around it's less siloed and it's more around the business and the customer sort of focus.
Yeah. So I think what would excite my exec team,
okay,
and I think what would excite our customers. We do an Innovate, so we call it an SDL Innovate, and we do it every year. We typically do it in San Francisco because that's a concentration of most of our customers.
Yeah.
And we show them what we're going to do, this customer experience platform. And I think we think that the importance of that and the amount of sales we'll make of that new platform will be quite significant probably 2014 it'll be people understanding it. So I think there'll be some traction, but I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be educational. So this year is all about educating the customers as to this is what they need. So this is kind of our conversation here, really. I think as you start moving into 2015, I think if people are not on the wagon, and what I mean on the wagon, from when an exec team decides or thinks we need to do something to when it's actually done, it's like 2 years. Yeah, and the bigger the company, the longer the time. And so, there's always more time than you think. People always get into a panic unnecessarily. But it's about, we're very excited about getting the software out there. So we think that customer experience software, whether it be ours, whoever's it will be, every single company will need that. The world is changing. People will be doing things in a different way than they are today. And the web was always going to be great. Even back in 2000 when we had the dot-com boom, the concept of that was spot on.
Yeah.
It was just not going to happen next week. It was going to take a few years.
Yes.
Now we've got, the infrastructure's still rubbish, quite honestly. It's still rubbish, but it's getting better. And, I think as we're now seeing, the infrastructure's good enough. The software isn't really good enough. It's still difficult to use. What we want to do is provide that software piece, and I think from a financial perspective, I think we'll see some really big growth. And so, I see it as. But the finance piece, I think, is that's you get that as a result of doing all the right things. So that will come.
Yeah.
I think that what we're doing is great. I think it's just world changing. So that's
fantastic. And so my final question, and I always end the interviews on this question, is this: is there anything that you'd like to shamelessly plug? And it doesn't have to be SDL. It can be anything else that's sort of close to your heart. You just go, I tell you what, I think I'm going to give a shout out to this.
can't think of anything really. Just not really. I mean,
Well, here's to world peace then.
yeah. I mean, I not really. No, I think we just had a good chat. I think there's a lot of learning in it. So, yeah,
Fantastic.
I'm comfortable.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.